Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. My name is Morgan Heinrich. I'm the Director of Marketing at Legacy Purchasing Group. So your first time joining us, welcome. If you join in during this conversation, please make sure to comment below and say hi so we can say hi to you guys. But we are so excited to have Laurel on our show today. But really quick, we just wanted to share our current packages and specials that we are running right now. So we have a furniture package that we have put together. There's about 5 different combinations, and we've deep discounted them. And on top of it, we have coupons. So don't tell my mom. I hope she's not listening, but she's looking for an office chair that's usually listed for $350, and we're getting it for $200. So definitely check that out. We also have a package for office essentials, and they're our favorite things. I mean, I have the pens right here, but so great. Check it out on our website. But today we're going to be talking with Laurel McEwen. She's a creative director. She's a genius. She's an industry leader, and she's a good friend of mine. I appreciate all of her feedback. I mean, she's a great person to have in your pocket during business. So I wanted to welcome you on. Hi, Laurel. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, for the kind words.
Yes, yeah. No, you're just so smart and so good at this. She has worked from coast to coast for big brands, but I'm going to let you introduce yourself and talk about everything that you've done. Hi, Alex. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. So I'm Laurel McEwen. I'm Fort Worth, born and bred. I have been back here about 4 years. Prior to that, I was in New York and in LA. I was working for an interior decor e-commerce called One Kings Lane. So my background was product and merchandising, and then I got tired of the cold, tired of the subways, and came back home. And I immediately started working for a bespoke furniture manufacturer here in Fort Worth called Kisabeth Furniture, doing all of their marketing, merchandising, and product development. And then went and was recruited away by Tandy Leather, which is a leather craft supply company here in Fort Worth. So both really great legacy Fort Worth brands that were kind of in this very essential like rebranding moment. Both been in business, one for 60 years, one for 100 years. And I got to come on at a really exciting time and help them kind of reposition themselves in the market, rebrand, and start kind of telling their brand story in a more meaningful and impactful way. So yeah, and I've been involved in the American Advertising Federation here at the local chapter, won some Addies, and was recognized as 32 under 32 by Add2 Dallas. So that's a great organization. If you guys need any resources as far as advertising, or you just want to get better connected, kind of with your advertisers in the market, AAF is a great resource. So that's kind of my down and dirty background. So.
Yeah, you are so impressive. I mean, at such a young age too. And so I see Alex Oldenburg says hi, another Alex says hi, but we have some business owners on here that want to learn how to make their businesses stand out in 2021. So our topic today was 2021 Make Meaning.
Yes.
Let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about it, the nitty gritty. I mean, we want to know how to make our businesses stand out. What do business owners need to know?
Yeah. So I think first things first, kind of take stock of what you have as far as branding. Like, do you feel secure in that? Do you feel great in that? If not, I think, a brand audit's really, really helpful. That's something that I do. And it's something that's just like quick and easy, looking at your logo, looking at where you employ it. It's all like the little things, just making sure that like you've got your social channels, like with all the correct kind of information in your bio and all the right pictures. And what does your email signature look like? What are those touch points that your consumer, where do they come to experience your brand, for the first time or kind of again and again? I think that's kind of, for me, that's the biggest thing, is just making sure that your brand has a unified front. So I would say, like, as you're taking stock, like, first things first, what is your big goal for 2021? And I think that can be as simple as, we need sales. Okay, how do you convert, right? Like, let's talk about that. So what's your goal? Now, if you could tell anybody one thing about your business, what would it be? What do they need to know? What's the most essential information? Number two, what do you want them to do about it? And have you made it really easy for them to do that? And I think if you kind of take those two kind of principles and make sure that that's the brand experience that they're having with your brand, whether, is Instagram your main portal, is your website your main portal, or is it your sales reps? It's always, to me, it's distilling down that essential information and making sure that you lower every single barrier to entry that you have. And I think a lot of times it's really easy. Like, I'm a big believer that like your brand identity can really help you do that, and help you build that clarity and that succinctness and that consistency. I also think consistency is the biggest thing you can do. So any place that a consumer might interact with your brand, they need to have the exact same experience. They need to be being told the exact same thing every single place that they interact with your brand, so that they don't have any confusion about what it is that you're trying to do for them, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of, to me, that's the biggest thing, is consistency, is making sure it looks and feels and sounds the same anywhere that they might run into your brand. Because not only will that help them with their decision making, it's going to help you stand out in the market. Because right now, I mean, so my sister told me something the other day. It's like, in a single, like, it's something insane, something like in 7 minutes now or something in a regular person's life, they're hit with more messages and information than a person, like the original person would have gotten in their entire life. So like, what? We got to cut through the clutter, right? So like, I think that's why consistency is so key.
Yeah. So when Laurel and I met, we were both working in the luxury industry. And when you're working for Kisbeth, it's like I interacted with you often, but that was one thing that I always noticed. You knew who Kisbeth was. You knew their brand, their logo. You walk into their showroom and it's the same experience every single time. And I really think that is, well, and that's what you're known for, is that brand consistency. And right now, I mean, the businesses that you're working with, you see their marketing and it's all very consistent. I mean, down to the lighting, the filters on the photos, it is very consistent.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, very.
Right. I just don't, I can't let any of it go awry. It's like, I just don't want, you always have to think about your brand as personal, and it should be very personal. Like, you should know what your brand story is, but your brand lives in the mind of the consumer. And I have so much, for me, it comes from a place of like compassion with the consumer. I want to make it easy on them to make the decision to convert. I want them to feel like so good about the decision. Like, this is definitely the right thing for me. I've heard the same thing over and over again. I think anything that you do, rule of thumb is 3 touches on anything too. We don't want to wear anybody out on a message, but we want to make sure that like they've heard it, right? Yeah. They might have missed it the first time. They see it the second time, they're like, okay, and then they need a reminder. So I think that's kind of always my rule of thumb, is like, being careful not to wear anybody out, but also making sure that like they can't miss it,
Well, and you said 3 touches, correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say a 3 touch minimum.
Yeah. Okay. 3 touch minimum. See, I'm taking all these notes right here. This is so great. And anybody listening, if you have any questions, please pop them into the comment section. They'll be answered at the end. Okay. So I have 2 questions that can go either way. So you had mentioned brand story and telling your brand story, but I also want to know about making a brand. So for those that are looking to make their brand stronger, I mean, right now I see some people in the comments that are looking to make their brand stronger or telling the brand story. So I don't know if you can wrap those up in one answer or.
Yeah, I think, and that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to do the mini sessions, because I think a lot of it has to do with, I want to talk to people about like exactly what it is with their brands, like how they operate, because I think sometimes that's some of the work, is like, what are the channels? Because some people might be, direct to consumer, some people might be B2B, they might be doing a lot of their business with sales reps. So I think it just depends like how we would actually employ that brand. And I think it depends on where everybody's at in their journey. Like, are they looking to rebrand? Do they need their logo freshened up? Like that kind of of thing. But I think the most important thing that everybody can do is make sure, like you were talking about with Kisbeth, I had my like little elevator pitch, right? So you want to have something, and I did this for people in the company, salespeople, people in the C-suite, where I'm like, this is it, man. This is your spiel. So make sure that you have your spiel. You get really, really comfortable sharing that, whether that can be sort of distilled down and shared in pieces and parts in social media, or you're having a conversation and you can regurgitate it, or you can put it quickly in an email and break some things out. So that's kind of what I did, is I had like my blurb that was like my written thing that I could say, but then I also had, if I just needed to like, what are the 3 points? What do we do? I have those too, right? So I think having those talking points, knowing exactly what it is that you want to share if you're only given like 15 seconds. And then also, I think genuinely having somebody come in and like audit your brand and make sure that you have all the tools that you need. I don't think it needs to be expensive. It just means like I said, again, like those little things of like making sure that you are utilizing all the channels that are appropriate for your line of business, and then making sure like you've got strong logo, you've got like strong brand identity, fonts, colors, those kinds of things, and just making sure that like they're cohesive and they're being used across the board, on all the channels, like including, like I said, even down to your email signatures, so that everybody's just having a super cohesive experience. And I actually think that's really important, not just for your external customer experience, but it's also really good for your internal team to feel like, everything is just really like organized and tight. And like, not everybody's really visual, but especially for visual people who are visual, they, it helps them feel really like anchored and centered in the brand. And I think like, even if your tagline or your spiel like isn't public, just knowing what that is and having that as a touch point and bringing everything back. Like I had a consult the other day with somebody, and I was like, I don't want you to do it if you don't know what the call to action is. We're not doing anything for fun. It can feel fun. It can feel lighthearted, but we're not doing anything just to do it. Nothing should be gratuitous. It should all be, what's the call to action? How are you helping these people make a decision about converting with your brand? And where do you want them to go from here? Like to press the buy button, to shop now, to call you? Does that make sense?
Of course. Yeah. To sign up or whatever it is. I have to say that we were at, Ashley and I had a meeting with Veridesk, and I mean, their logo and motto is everywhere. I mean, their offices are titled that. And such great brand cohesiveness. It really goes down to their core. I had a question though. So we had been talking about, I was talking to another business owner, and she was interested. She said, when I'm creating my brand, am I creating it for me or to appeal to my client? Because that's two different stories you can tell. So which one do you tell?
Yeah, I think, again, I think it's important, like what's the product, right? Like, are you your product? Like I might position somebody who was a consultant differently than somebody who was providing a service to someone that would be very personal to them. But like, let's say like you do have a company that's like, you are a, you do closet organization, or you do, personal home organization. That is a very personal thing. You want people to feel comfortable inviting you into your home, but you also want to establish yourself as an authority. So I think it is both, right? It is a story of, and especially if you're like a one-man operation, yeah, like we're absolutely going to talk about you. And we did that with Kisbeth. We're like, this is amazing because this is a family-owned company, run by artisans. Like we take this very personally. And so I think it's both, but your brand lives in the mind of the consumer. So that's one of those things where you would try to decide what was more important. I think talking about yourself and like why it's a value and why you're an expert is extremely important, but ultimately it's what is the value that it's providing to them as a consumer. So I would say that trumps, but lots of people are their brand. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so for anybody that doesn't know, Laurel is providing free 30-minute consultations, and we'll talk about that at the end. We're about to wrap up. I wanted to go through. So make sure so to recap, make sure you know your 2021 goal. What is one thing that your potential client needs to know, and what is the one thing that they need to do? Which is great. I mean, it simplifies it, but there's so much that goes beyond that. And then Laurel, we have a question.
Yeah.
From one of the viewers. Do you have any idea on how small businesses can compete with larger competitors by being better at marketing?
Yes. I think that a lot of small businesses, okay, so right now I think small businesses, we're obviously in a very difficult climate and circumstance, but I do think that now more than ever, I think for a while people have been turning their attention towards small businesses, but now more than ever, we really have a platform for that. And I think, Amazon, cool. Yeah, it shows up super fast and I can get a lot of like weird stuff that's not very sexy. But I think depending on like what your product is, that's again where like storytelling comes into play. And it's like that unique, you're a part of your community. Like, what do you do things that are sustainable? Like you can tell a deeper brand story when you're a small business than you can when you're a big business. And I think that what happens is once you kind of decide what that brand story is, you pull that apart in your marketing and you weave this narrative, and then people are following you, wanting to know, what's going on, of course, with you and, why they're going to buy in. I think small businesses have a lot of opportunity to capitalize on their community that they're serving, right? And have this like personal relationship. So
shop local shop. I mean, that's such a trending item right now. And speaking of, what social media channels do you feel are most effective for businesses?
I think that, okay, again, this definitely depends on what you're selling, but I think Instagram is hugely important. I think that even I've got some wholesale like B2B clients, and they can't even use like the shop now mechanism the same way that, a retailer would. But I think Instagram is extremely important. And a lot of people are shopping, like, especially with word of mouth. I'll be like, Morgan, you got to look this up. Where do you go? You don't Google it. You go to Instagram and type in their handle, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I think a tactic too for if you don't have a lot of like time and energy to manage social platforms, because like yuck, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, there's so many, and maybe you can decide to, like, maybe depending on what your industry is, like maybe Pinterest is a better mechanism for you depending on what you sell, if you like home decor or something. But I think like having a really strong presence on Instagram and then just like letting that kind of like automatically translate like onto Facebook is a really perfectly acceptable marketing tactic. Like you could change it a little bit for the platform, but I think ultimately like Instagram's really probably the most important right now.
That's great. That's great to know. So TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so weird. Like Ashley and I talked about this, and I guess just the viewers and stuff like that. Like so many people are on TikTok now. I mean, one of the people that just asked a question, she's taken off on TikTok and she does microblading.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a different avenue. Yeah.
Yeah. TikTok is, I think that's another really good product. Both are obviously like platforms that lend themselves to lifestyle product. But I mean, you can sell anything. I think TikTok is it's relevant, but you have people, I definitely have a TikTok. I don't make any content on TikTok. I don't want to be shown like doing any dances or anything. But I am on it. And so I do think like, don't discount TikTok. I think it's one of those things, again, maybe you're not super active on it, but you claim your business's handle, you make sure that you have some things on there. If you have any video content related to your brand, maybe just go ahead and upload it there. And so just making sure that you've got all of your bases covered, so that if for some reason, like maybe your brand's not super relevant at this moment for TikTok, but just making sure that you can catch them if they are on TikTok looking for you.
That's great.
So yeah.
Okay. So we're at time, but we have one question below. It's a long one, so if you want to read it on here. So since content production exposure are super important, how do you combat that and compete while still building your brand? For example, if you provide a service to people, you don't have a ton of clientele just yet. How do you reuse your content to be useful and effective? Thank you, Alex, for that question.
Yes. I think that that's truly content fatigue is one of the biggest things that you can do. Like you do have to combat. I think I'm a really big fan of like, I come from a background of comprehensive marketing campaigns. And so when I do something like I use the same content across many different kinds of media, and then I kind of figure out how to like pull that apart and like what are some low hanging what content do you have, right? And then like what are some low hanging content buckets where you know that you can post every single week. Something that's like low touch and easy that you have ready to go. I agree. Like, I think it's so like the burden of making new content is there and it's real. And I don't think you can necessarily outrun it. But like, let's say you have a lot of like product photography. We're going to use that like straight on product photography. We're gonna put a logo on it, put some words on it. We're gonna find ways to use the same thing over and over again, which I think is good anyways, right? Because when we were talking about consistency, that's part of it. That can be part of your strategy. I don't think it has to be something new every single time. You just want it to feel a little different. And I think that that can be done fairly easily, depending on what. One of the things I did at Kiss About This, I inherited a recent rebrand. And one of the things that I did was figure out ways to take those brand colors, that logo, and things like that, and kind of, without violating the brand standards that they paid a lot of money for, figuring out how to take, adding things into the brands, whether it was like black and white photos, figuring out like blowing up the logo and cropping it and like using and doing, turning the opacity down on the colors and things like that, where I would put like overlays just so it all feels like branded, but it was really like a lot of the same thing that you're looking at over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those listening right now that are business owners, Canva it's a great tool to use if you're a beginner. I mean, it's wonderful. It's low cost. There's a ton of different planning apps out there. I use Planoly. There's a lot of different ones. But we are at time right now. So Laurel, can you tell us really quick about the consultations that you're offering?
Absolutely. I feel like it's hard in this scenario. Like, I know you guys probably have a lot of different ways you do business and things that you sell. And I do really believe that like this conversation is like very personal and really does need to be very tailored. So I know I've given a lot of like very general advice, even the conversation about the content planning. That's why I'm like, let's like talk about it, because I don't want you to feel like, okay, that's great. Like, yeah, I know I need goals. I'm happy to talk to you guys about it in depth and make some like decisions about how you can actually, what are the tactics for your business? So 30-minute, just chat with me. It'll probably go longer, like to talk a lot. Free to continue this conversation. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or you can just email me. I think Morgan will give you that. And we can just keep talking about what you're trying to do in 2021 and how to get there with some low touch, low hanging fruit, easy stuff.
Well, that's amazing. Any business owner wants to know, like, what is the secret, And so your brain is just so creative in every single different brand that you work with. It's a different branded experience. So it's not the same cut and dry, like cut and paste type of thing. You are so deep into the brand. I mean, I see things and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so well branded. And that's you. That's behind it.
Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I will put Laurel's information. If you have any additional questions, please put them in the comments and Laurel and I will both answer them. So thank you again, Laurel, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and everybody have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.